Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Vari.inject. This is one of 4 functions that we currently have on Vari, and it's currently released, so you're welcome to use this in production. And the .get versus the .inject, they behave a little bit differently. The .get is kind of a traditional function to get the variable. So you have some client code, you use .get to retrieve some kind of configurations, some kind of information, and then you're welcome to actually use it in function calls through the poly proxy to call some API. So this is kind of a standard pattern that you would have with the Vault. However, for secrets, we made it so you can only .inject them. What this means is that you basically pass a reference to a poly function, and the poly proxy uses that reference to obtain and inject the secret before it's passed down to the underlying API. So this is a really nice approach for secrets and for sensitive information. But not only that, it also has the added benefit of being slightly more performant because there's one less round trip of calling a vault. So in the .get, you have to first wait for the result, then you can call the function. Whereas with the .inject, you just call the function and the vault and the proxy are co-located, so the kind of the extra latency is negligent, which means that it performs faster. The key benefits are, like I said, a good practice on secure credential handling. With the .inject, the client never actually has possession of the credentials, so even if it's compromised, yes, that attacker could use that function and pass in that variable, but they couldn't access the actual underlying token. And so kind of the more powerful, the more scoped, greater scoped the tokens or underlying credentials are, the more beneficial the Vari.inject function is, because it really just limits that surface attack area to just that one function instead of the entirety of the power that those credentials have. It's also a really nice developer experience, and like I said, it improves performance. The big innovation here is kind of the elegant design, I would say, of our proxy, which is what the functions are executed against, and then its integration to the Vault, which today is HashiCorp Vault. However, in the future, it might actually represent your Vault in Azure, AWS, or GCP. The other big innovation here is that we're able to build and model a type schema for the variables. So even if it's a secret, you'll know what the object looks like without seeing the contents of it. And I'll demonstrate that in our demo today, just so you have an idea of how you can still work with secrets just like you would in regular programming without knowing the contents of them. The big innovation, you might have seen my other video here, is that we do need to extend these secrets to have kind of non-secret metadata that you can access and work with. That might be helpful in selecting what secret to use. It might be helpful in things like having tokens that are stored as secrets but having expiry times that are visible, and etc. And then the other thing we'd love to do is kind of have this notion of like associated variables. So when you're working with the function, it would just be really nice to know what variables could be used in accordance to it. It's a little bit tricky. You don't want to map every single one. So for example, you might have Shopify functions, which I'll demo today, that take in a Shopify token. Well, you don't want to have to go map every Shopify token variable to every function. So some kind of more generic mapping, or maybe some kind of inferred mapping, and then the construction of those associations could be a really good approach. So with that, let's go take a look at the demo. So I've already gone ahead and executed this call. I had my actual token in plain text when I did it. I removed it for privacy reasons, and we can see we got 2 results here. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you an example of both the .get and .inject. So for the .get, I'm going to go to my store, and I'm going to go ahead and right-click here. And by the way, you can pull it from the tree, you can pull it from the AI agent. The AI agent can help you find variables as well. Today I'm just going to go ahead and pluck them from the poly tree, and I'll use .get for store, and then I'm also going to go ahead and import Vari here. So that's a submodule that allows you to use it, And additionally, I'm going to go ahead and actually just log the .get here. Okay, and then for the token, because it is a secret, we can only use .inject. So I'm going to go ahead and left click on it, and then I'm going to go ahead and paste it here. And that's going to resolve to injecting the token on the server. Now, one additional thing to note is because we want to wait for the response of the .get, we have to use an await. And then because we're going to basically be just like passing a reference, you don't need to use an await with injects. And Python has something very similar. However, with Java, this is handled a little bit differently. So I'm going to go ahead and log the secret as well, so we can see what the output looks like. And I'll go ahead and paste it here. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute this now one more time. And we can see we still got 2 results. For the get, we were able to get the actual value, which is Darko demo store. And then for the console log of the inject, we basically got this object, which has got some kind of notation. And to be honest, this is a little bit lower than my understanding of these languages as well. But nonetheless, it's some kind of symbol reference that is used by Vari, so it's not actually the value itself. And if we tried to do a .get on the token, we'll see that it won't actually even resolve, but we'll run it one more time just to see it in action. In the future, we're going to make it so you can't even try and get a token because it's a secret. So today, we'll just throw an error. We'll say, hey, can't access a secret from the client. But in the future, the SDK shouldn't even give you the .get option. It should just know, hey, this is a secret, therefore you can't access it. Now, one additional thing I'd like to show you is if the secret is actually an object, like I mentioned, you can access the model for it without ever seeing the contents of it. So I've created this example secret, which is an object, and I'm going to go ahead and click on it and just paste it in here. So we'll just say const secret equals this. And this part is fine. And if you hover over secret, you'll actually see that we've got a model for it. So you can actually click into it and you can go look at it. And you can see that, hey, this thing's got a value type. You can go into it and you can see that our secret has a key 1, which is a string, and a key 2, which is a number. That means you have all the benefits of IntelliSense, etc. So if you wanted secrets kind of stored within objects, you can still access the kind of attributes, and you can still know what model you have without actually being able to see the contents of it. So hopefully that makes sense. It's kind of an additional option to kind of how you structure information inside Vari. One last closing comment is that all these credentials do get stored in HashiCorp Vault, and they're all encrypted. And then they're also encrypted and stored inside Redis. So everything's cached. You're not hitting the vault every time you access credentials. We manage the caching by only invalidating the cache on updates. So in other words, you get great performance, still have great security at rest and at runtime. And then one warning I should point out, and this is just an architectural consideration, the .inject does resolve to the actual content of that secret if you call a function, which means that if you have a server function and you pass in .inject, the owner of that server function could access the underlying secret because it's going to be injected when it comes into the server function. Same idea with the owner of the API. They will actually receive the actual content. So be careful with that. You don't want to be calling functions with secrets if you don't trust the owner of that function. So just a consideration to keep in mind. With that, thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed this demo.